Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
What exactly do you want?
Information. What do you know about the Cabal? What genetic enhancements you've seen? Helix deployments. Who's giving them their orders?
You've got plenty of Suliban here. Why not ask them?
We both know they wouldn't be very helpful.
Then why are they in prison?
That's a discussion for another time.
There are families here, children. One man hasn't seen his wife in years.
Tell me what you know.
They don't deserve this kind of treatment.
They're here for their own protection.
Oh, really?
The last thing we wanted to do was build these detention centers. But we had no choice. When the Cabal began their activities, there was a great deal of fear among the Tandarans. There were instances of violence. 14 innocent Suliban were killed in one day alone. We had to find a way to keep them out of danger.
Then why not just let them find another place to live?
They wouldn't get very far. It's ironic, but once they're out of Tandaran territory, the Cabal will hunt them down and turn them all into soldiers. They're better off here.
I've met a few Suliban who disagree.
You guys, what are we doing tonight, guys? What's up? What's up, guys? What's up? What are you doing? What's up, guys? Guys, what's going down, man? What's up? Tell me now. Tell me now.
What is it?
Jesse, what's up? What's going down?
I'm confused by this question.
What's all around, buddy? What you got for me?
All around, buddy?
What you got for me, huh? Go.
I don't appreciate
Jesse,
this way you're speaking to
Jesse,
me.
go.
Jesse?
Would you rather I sing to you, Jesse?
Yes.
Well, it's not going to happen.
Oh, man, I was really hoping it would.
I thought today was the day.
Because I think Dan is real eager to get this whole
I was going to get a
podcast.
serenade.
This whole podcast thing started.
My name is Jesse.
That's not a song.
You can't just make up songs.
My name's Jesse. There,
Right.
that was your song.
Okay.
Your fucking song.
Damn.
Well done. Well done. We'll call the podcast started. How about that?
I'll call it started.
That way, Dan will be pleased. We can get on with our evening. We can record this conversation. Yes. So, okay. Welcome to the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
Let's record this conversation.
We'll record this podcast. The It's Got Star Trek podcast. It happens to be episode 221.
Oh, boy.
Wait, what was that? Let's do that again.
Oh, boy.
What is that? Okay, I guess we're gonna find out. Dan's got one of those.
know.
He's got one of those looks on his
I
face.
mean, I play sounds from the episode, so I don't know.
Okay.
Take a guess, I guess. Take a guess, I guess.
Dan's got the face of somebody who thinks he's got some good podcasting material in the bank.
It's just my face.
Yeah, well, that is one reason why the podcast is indeed so successful, because you have that
that
face
what you call a
nearly
face?
every week. Okay.
It's the same face you always have.
It's got Star Trek 221. We did that bit. It's a new year. It's a whole new year.
You look great in powder blue.
Right, when it comes out.
Okay,
it's-
I think I get it. I think I get it. Okay.
Pads, kinky.
Okay. So, all right. Okay. It's got Star Trek.
Don't yell, please.
We're going to be discussing.
What's happening here?
We're going to be discussing Star Trek Enterprise. The first season episode. It's the 21st episode of the first season.
You said it all weird.
It is called. Well, give me a break, man.
What did he say all weird?
He was just like, it's the first episode of this the season one. He could have just said season 1, episode 21, but he chose to go backwards, and he only went half backwards.
It's Star Trek Enterprise.
What are you, Yoda? What's going on?
Season 1, episode 21, Detained.
Oh, boy.
Detained.
Oh boy.
Okay. Yes, we will be discussing Detained momentarily, but
Is that a ginger quilled spent wing?
but first, before we get to that discussion, it is a new year. The date that this episode goes out, it will be January 1st, a brand new year.
It will be.
What?
I don't have anything particularly important to comment on about the shifting of the new year.
Why do you care?
I don't that much. It's arbitrary. We've arbitrarily, in the Western world anyway, have arbitrarily selected and through imperialism have somewhat imposed the idea that the new year starts on January 1st.
How much longer are they going to have to wait?
You mean for the rest of the podcast?
Yeah.
For the new year.
No, they don't have to wait at all. It will be done.
Oh.
When people,
Why?
when people have started, if you started listening to this episode, as soon as it became available at midnight, it's probably like 10 minutes after midnight at this
I can't permit that.
or maybe 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes. I don't know.
Oh boy.
Okay. Anyway, it's a new year. Nothing to comment about that. That's just cool. 2024. Lots of
Why are any of us here?
There's lots of Star Trek stuff in 2024. Most specifically, not to fuck with Dan's algorithm, but most specifically, 2024 in the Star Trek universe is when the Bell riots happen. In the Deep Space Nine two-parter, Past Tense.
Oh boy.
Parts 1 and 2. Now, longtime listeners to the podcast will know that Dan's bespoke podcast topic selecting algorithm has, for some reason, some sort of inbuilt bias towards selecting past tense, either part 1 or 2.
Usually part two. Yeah.
Usually part
And
2
now-
as being the one we should discuss next week,
Now-
even though we discussed that back, I think, in episode like 25 or something of the podcast.
And it's hard to say if that's a bug with the algorithm or expected behavior based upon like dialogue and how it goes together in each episode of Star Trek. I don't think it's a bug so much as just like past tense part
Maybe
2.
we're
There's
the
just
bug.
something about that episode that is like I've said this before. It
it's
seems
it's the locus.
It's very conversational.
Star Trek.
It's very conversational. That's what my theory is.
Yes.
It's very conversational, so it fits into any kind.
We've never
of
delved
thing.
too deeply into what
No, we
exactly
haven't.
you mean by
Well,
conversational.
you know, it's like this is a conversation we're having. We're going doo dee da dee doo doo doo.
Yeah, but how does that apply to the
Is this a
episode?
conversation? that
Because
we're
some
having?
episodes of like Voyager, for example, are like, you know, they talk about reverse the polarity on
And
the
the spring
spring
drop
drop
on the
boom
boom
blah
blap.
beam the beam boom boom boom, and you know, and it's all like Neelix and Cass time travel space. Like that's not very conversational. It's very heavy on certain like topical words. But conversational stuff is more general, and that's my theory is that
That makes
DS9
sense, yeah.
is especially past tense part 2, or maybe it's just my algorithm needs to be tweaked. But I haven't gotten it in a while actually. Haven't gotten it in a while.
Well, you did get it a few weeks back.
think-
Oh, yeah.
It was halfway down the list, and I almost guarantee that next week you will get past tense.
I apologize.
Because we keep saying
Parts 1 and part 2.
past tense.
Past
Who
tense.
knows? Maybe
Oh,
we should
no.
start. Maybe we should start redoing episodes from the past.
We got to stop saying past tense. Maybe that's why we always got it, because we'd always talk about how we always got past tense.
I mean, that was a guess that we had before, that if we said past tense, that your algorithm would somehow statistically favor
Yeah.
the episode's past tense.
It would. No, it wouldn't. Oh, that's right. Now I remember. Yeah, it wouldn't. Saying past tense wouldn't favor the episode because the algorithm does not include the title of the episode. It only includes the dialogue of the episode.
you
But what
did
if the
mention that.
dialogue
Mentions-
contains the title of the episode?
Well,
which it
then-
might not in.
But I
past
don't
tense.
think Cisco
It
in
doesn't-
past
it
tense is
doesn't
all
do it
like
in
past tense.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think so either.
All right. Well,
Yes, in that case, yes.
we will find out if next week past tense is mentioned. Maybe just mentioning the year 2024 is good enough.
Evidence!
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I don't have any other news and ups this week. But we do have a voicemail.
What?
Yeah, we have a voicemail from our very good friend Isaac from Unplanned Trek.
That's right.
Hello, guys. It is Isaac from Unplanned Trek. And first of all, I'd like to say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you boys. I hope your stockings were full of Star Trek stuff. And if not, I hope they kept the receipts so you can return it. I did have a question for you guys. Dan, I was wondering how you source and record and use your audio files. Only joking. I just know that gets asked each week, so I thought I'd ask again. No, seriously, guys, I'm really looking forward to what you guys have in store for the year ahead. Hope you guys can also step by our pod from time to time with our live rewatches in the 50 Shades of Trek project that's only just starting. What's your sexiest episode of Trek? I'd like to know what you think it is. Yeah, all right. That will do. I'll just work out. Have I got to that 90-second bit? If it goes above 90 seconds, it will just cut off, won't it? Because there's no other way of sending longer files. Okay, I think that will do. See you later, boys. Bye.
Thank you, Colonel. I can tell you're an enlightened man.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Sexiest Trek.
So I could spend another 15, 20 minutes describing how I source my files if we'd like to.
Here's what I honestly.
I always like to hear it because I forget it each time. So.
I do think maybe not tonight, but I think it would be fun to do like an
maybe not
episode.
tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
I think. Do you know what movie that's a quote from?
Well, that line was misspoke by Launchpad from DuckTales.
Launchpad McQuack. That's right.
Launchpad McQuack.
So I was thinking it'd be fun to do an episode like a user's manual to the It's Got Star Trek podcast, you know, because we do have new listeners coming on board all the time.
To say the least.
And we could provide some highlights, some key bits of information, including some background information on the production of the podcast and the philosophies, whatever. You know, we could do something fun like that. Might be fun. I don't know. But as for the sexiest Trek first, I want to mention or reiterate what Isaac was talking about was their 50 Shades of Trek project, which I do hope we get involved with at some point along the line, where they're going through basically the sexiest Trek episodes with, of course, a humorous, comical tone, right?
Canonical?
Comical.
Canonical?
Comical.
It's comically canonical? Comically canonical?
Canoes?
Canonically conical?
Toboggan?
Conical?
Comically
conical?
Comically conically comically canon
Kamikazes?
comically canon oh
Jesse,
God.
we're not talking about the episode.
Canonically I forgot how to say that word.
What?
Comically canonically conical. Comically canonically conical.
All right.
Comically canonically conical.
Say that 10 times fast.
Comically canonically conical.
Colonical.
Shit.
Shit.
Comically I can't. That's the limit I reach.
Anyway, go follow them, Unplanned Trek. Go check out Unplanned Trek. They're a great podcast, and they're doing first of all, they've got their core podcast, but then they got all this other amazing stuff going on. So go check it out. Okay, sexiest Star Trek though. This was the question that was put forward to us. I don't know. What do you guys think? Did you have any thoughts that come to mind?
Anyone where someone's like getting naked or talking about being naked,
There's little
or
bits
naked
here and there. in
Remember in
episodes,
was it
yeah.
which was it? It was not Insurrection. It was the vampire.
First Contact?
No, the vampire one. The
Nemesis.
Nemesis.
With the Umpire. You mean the Remans?
Wasn't that the one where they were going to Picard was all jogging at the beginning because he was trying to get in shape because they were going to a naked Beta Z wedding.
Yes.
That's not supposed to be sexy. That's
The
supposed
mirror
to be.
universe is always kind of sexy.
Well, wait. Yeah, I was gonna say that's not very sexy because it's like a wedding and it's nudity in terms of like enjoying like life and nature and stuff. So that feels.
But you're gross.
It's inappropriate to call that sexy
because you're gross.
Yeah, because I'm gross. That's not very sexy now that I think of it. But Picard was trying to be sexy for it.
Picard was trying to be sexy.
So that's kind of sexy, right?
You know what I think is? I think Waltz is a sexy episode with Cisco and Ducat in the cave.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Evidence!
Exactly. That's the episode that's from.
Why? Because they're one-on-one and they have to take care of each other?
Yeah. Sexy Cisco.
We talked about that one.
Sexy lizard man. They're getting all sweaty and hot in the cave.
Okay, let's do it!
Exactly. See?
Jesse, which one were you talking about? You mentioned one before I was finished talking
I
about
said
mine.
mirror universe. Anything with the mirror universe is there's usually some
That's like the whole deal with the
sex.
mirror
Yeah,
universe.
it's like the sex.
Like the intendant,
sexiverse.
like on Deep Space Nine, the intendant, Kira, the intendant.
But what, like the naked now, right? That's
And the naked time.
the naked now is probably sexier.
Well, you know, It depends what you mean by sexy.
There's
There's
because-
funny.
Because once again, Picard was being sexy. So when Picard is trying to be sexy.
Data and
Data's fully
Tasha
functional.
Oh yeah.
and being fully functional, but that's more funny than sexy. I think that's the problem. I think most of the time Star Trek comes off as either it's hilarious and not sexy, or it's trying to be sexy and it's actually just sort of offensive.
Yeah, like when
weird.
when the Q kid like took off 7 of 9's clothes. That was offensive. Like
Yeah,
sexy.
I mean, well,
yeah, it's pushing it, man.
I mean, and that was directed to be like, that was clearly not intended. Well, you know what? You're right.
I mean,
they were trying to titillate the audience.
They
You're
were.
right.
It was
Yeah.
also supposed to be humorous, but they knew what they were. They knew what they were doing.
Well, and as
that was the olden days.
we've discussed as well with Enterprise, how I think we discussed this back when we talked about the pilot Broken Bow, where the whole idea with Enterprise is they're like, we're progressive, advanced, turn of the century people. So we, instead of over sexualizing women, what we'll do is we'll also over sexualize men. We won't stop over sexualizing women. We'll just try to have more penises, like bulgy penises, and women and men rubbing oil on each other. And they thought that would even out the scores. So
Oklahoma.
Forget about the war and go shopping.
Have you ever been to Oklahoma?
Broken Bow.
It is a funny thing though with the sexiness where it's like you're like, okay, as a teen boy you're like, oh, this is hot, and then later you're just like, it's like in the sexy. You know what's more sexy is Carbon Creek. I think there's something really sexy about like aliens,
There's
like
a bit of that, yeah.
trapped and having to live a nice, cute little domestic life.
Right.
You
So
know?
you're saying marriage and domesticity
Those,
is
those
sexy.
Vulcans is all holed up
they
together.
weren't.
in
They
that
were
house.
pretending to be married. Maybe that's the sexy part.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Is that a ginger quilled spent wing?
All right. Well, we're gonna learn more about what's going on here.
Duck.
In a little bit, but yes, thank you very much, Isaac. I think it's a good question.
Duck.
And again, everyone, keep an eye out for whatever unplanned Trek is thrown
your
at
eye
you
popped.
on their public feed and their Patreon because they've got so much amazing stuff.
Keep
going
it
on.
popping.
That very short Trek with the booger episode, that was pretty sexy.
Yeah, the worst contact.
Worst
Right,
contact.
That one got me going.
I think we can
Yeah.
agree. It's got the most goo.
Yeah. Oh.
It's got fishy smells.
All right, so we agree that the worst contact, Isaac, that's our answer. Worst contact from very short treks, the non-canonically, comically canonical.
Comically not the
Colonical,
comically non-canonical,
Covered in goo.
canonically.
God, there's so
canonical.
much goo.
The canonically non-canonical the canonically comical non-canonically conical. Jesse was bored with that before I finished saying it. Jesse's like, oh man, I'm
Now we
already
will
so
start
bored.
the podcast.
Hi, welcome to the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
You gotta get out of here.
Get out of here.
Okay, all right. That's our cue to get into the episode proper. Our discussion of Detained. We are
Hi,
now
cutie. You look great in powder blue.
we're now ready to provide a lighthearted comedic discussion about Japanese internment camps.
Have you had a chance to reconsider?
Okay.
Hi, cutie. You
yeah.
look great in powder blue.
All right.
Helix deployments. Helix deployments.
Knee pads, kinky.
Jonathan Archer.
Do what he says, Sam. I'm froze.
Well, there's a hint.
So you know, I mean, I think everyone knows what's going on now. Jesse, do you know what's going on?
Travis Mayweather.
Have you
Is
figured
that
it
a
out?
ginger quilled spent
In
wing?
what sense do you mean?
Oh, boy.
All right, so
Like what's going on with Dan? Or like what's going on? What we're actually about?
yeah, what's going on with Dan? Do you know?
Helix deployments.
No.
So what do you expect, a hologram to knock?
Holograms?
Okay, all right.
Helix deployments.
Knee pads, kinky. Oh, boy.
I'm just delighted by that. So, this episode, Detained, came late in the first season of Star Trek Enterprise.
Why?
Because this is the point in time in which the writers wrote it, and then it was produced by the producers and actors and production crew and all that stuff. Okay.
What?
So, this episode was not an excuse. Let me rephrase it. This episode.
Oh, boy.
Oh boy. This episode was an opportunity.
Opportunity. I like that word better.
Opportunity for the producers
Proceed.
to get Dean Stockwell,
Dean Stockwell.
to star
Dean it up.
Well, next time I'll knock.
with his old co-star, with his old friend Jonathan Archer.
Hi, Sam. How's it going, pal?
With a completely different dynamic.
Yes.
Do what he says, Sam. I'm froze.
Dean
boy.
Stockwell was on
Oh, boy.
Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap.
Okay. All right. So Dean Stockwell was on Quantum Leap and with good old Captain Archer, because as we know, Captain Archer is a real person.
Sam.
And he used to be on Quantum Leap.
Right, yeah.
Hi, cutie. You look
Before he
great
worked
in
for
powder
Starfleet.
blue.
That's what the whole started the whole temporal war. It was all Quantum Leap business.
I know.
He just kept leaping. And it got people annoyed.
Man, that show had like an upsetting
there was
ending.
friction.
Yeah, it did.
I haven't watched the new one. I don't know or has anyone seen the new
Oh, I
Quantum
forgot
Leap?
that there was a new.
I forgot there was a new one too. I have not seen it.
It's because it isn't that new, right?
It isn't.
Well, I mean, it's a few years now.
A few years.
A couple seasons.
I don't know. I saw the newer RoboCop, and that wasn't so great.
No,
It
that
wasn't.
one.
I mean, it was like as far as like a straight action movie, there was some fun action, but it wasn't
There's
like
no point
it wasn't
calling it RoboCop.
Yeah, RoboCop was its own satirical kind of thing. You
Of course,
know?
that has absolutely nothing to do with Quantum Leap.
But you were talking about like things made years later. I heard that the newer Total Recall had amazing like city building and like special effects, but it was just kind of shitty.
I haven't seen it. I cannot
I heard it was
vouch
just
for
like
any of these.
I heard it
opinions.
was just kind of dull.
I like you haven't seen it either. Like none of us.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I heard it was.
I'm perfectly comfortable
but the reason-
providing halfway opinions of things we haven't seen.
But the reason I brought those up is because you're talking about the Quantum Leap, and I'm based upon that probably unrelated amount of information. Like I'm going to decide that the new Quantum Leap probably wasn't as good. I mean, I don't know. Part of the what was good about the original Quantum Leap is how cheesy it was.
Exactly, and so I'm presuming it's more serious and less cheesy, but I don't know.
This theme is like so weird.
It's computer 80s theme. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to listen to some of this. Yeah. Quantum Leap.
It's very 80s
Quantum
kind of
leaping.
vibe.
Here we go with the quantum leap. Leaping through the time zones. Yeah.
That's kinky.
that ending bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's the 1980s.
It's
Right, it ends with like a marching band flourish.
like back in the
Goes back all quiet.
in the 1980s when you only had to produce like 10 minutes of actual show because the opening credits were 15 minutes long.
And this is like a sci-fi, like sort of. Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of sci-fi, but also about
Sci-fi family drama, not family drama, but like he was often dealing with
yeah.
interpersonal issues.
Yeah, right. Which is why this theme doesn't really fit either of those kinds of styles.
No. Yeah.
I don't know what this was supposed. This part is kind of like adventurous, you know.
Oh, by the way, folks who were not born early enough to actually watch this when it was on the air, this is not a joke. This is how long the opening is. It's still going on.
Right. And you saw bits from the show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was one of those kind of openings.
Is that a gingerbread Bentley?
a little slow.
It's funny.
Yeah, I think it's almost there.
Yeah. Dean Stockwell. Daddy do daddy do dada.
Oh, boy.
Oh
Oh,
jeez.
boy.
It was quite a show.
Oh boy. Oh no.
So what do you expect, a hologram to knock? Hologram.
Yeah, so
Dean
this.
Stockwell was also in some like David Lynch movies, right?
He was in all sorts of stuff. He was in the
He was in. Yeah, he
the new-
acted for a long time.
in the new Battlestar Galactica, the Battlestar Galactica reboot under Ron Moore. He
Right.
was in that, and he was always a great actor, and it was really cool seeing him here.
Well, so yeah, his character in Quantum Leap was like really this lovable. Like Sam was the guy who quantum leapt, and Al was his like guy.
You mean Captain Archer?
Sam, Captain Archer, yeah.
Yes, in disguise as Sam.
Archer disguised as Sam because Archer went back in time for the Temple Cold War
Yes.
and became Sam,
Yes.
who then jumped from body to body through a time
Yes.
period. So, and
Throughout his own lifespan, usually, unless there was some kind of thing to explain it away.
oh, really? Was that one of the deals?
There was rare.
that why he never got-
It was always within his own lifespan.
Yeah, it
there was
was.
one where he did some Civil War shit because of something that happened.
Because they wanted to get some more ratings.
They
That
wanted
way.
to be more interesting. Yeah.
So, and then Al, who is Dean Stockwell, Dean Stockwell playing Al in that show was like
Algorithm.
he was like he was his guide, sort of like back home, like
He was an admiral.
he was the one who sort of like led him through the shit and guided him along, and he was so lovable.
He was
and,
like
and,
Siri or Google Assistant.
and he was like a really lovable character, but in this one, he is like not a good
He's
guy.
not like Al at all.
But you know, Grat, in a way, you could kind of he could almost be a little bit sympathetic. in a way.
He's sympathetic.
He's a sympathetic way.
What's great about Dean Stockwell here? There's a lot of things that are great about Dean Stockwell. Steen Dockwell?
Bah.
Yeah, Steen Dockwell. There's a lot of things that are great about Steen Dockwell.
That's not his.
Breen Flockwell.
And
Glean Snockwell.
one of them is that
Clean Sockwell.
he's clearly the antagonist, right? And the show does not try to make him out to be a good guy in any way. But Stockwell is able to convey some humanity and I think the main point being that he's a regular person. He's not like this type of policy, this type of
Regular,
evil.
like Tandorian.
Yeah, well, that exactly the whole,
Tandarin.
you know, this is obviously it's not. I hesitate to even say it's obviously an allegory for the Japanese internment camps because they fucking mentioned the Japanese internment camps.
Yeah.
They mentioned it once.
Yeah,
all
but
kind of sledgehammer.
And
Yeah, it was.
in the second break, we'll provide. I'll go over a few facts about the Japanese internment camps in
Totally,
the second break.
yes.
But the point is that those policies were not put in place by crazy mustache twirling evil psychopaths. They were put into place by regular people and enforced by regular people. And he comes across as a regular guy who is terrified because he's bought into probably propaganda, but definitely his own fear and prejudice has control over him. And there is a certain amount of sympathy that can, or at least pity that can come out of
right.
it.
And it is true that if they'd let him go, they'd probably be chased down the what's it called? The people, the why am I blanking?
Suliban?
Suliban. I can't believe I forgot that. The Suliban. He was like, if we let him go, the Cabal's just going to chase him down anyway, which is probably true. And at the end, like Captain Al. No, Captain Sam. Captain Sam. I didn't even get my stupid dumb joke not worth saying right.
Talk about mixing metaphors.
Archer, even at the end was like, they're gonna be. He was basically like, they're gonna be okay, like escaping this place, but we don't know what's gonna happen. So he was. But then the problem comes in that like. Okay, if it's for their protection, then why won't you let the guy reunite with his wife?
Yes.
You know, like stuff like that. And then what you were saying about prejudice, like he was
Because it's not really for their protection.
but I mean, it kind of like was intended. Part of it, maybe it was intended to be that way. Maybe it wasn't.
That's at least the justification,
that's
and
the
the justification fails because of what you were.
Yeah, but it is also true in the sense that if they do let him go, the Cabal will get him. But that doesn't. What you were saying about Grat, like how he's just a regular guy, like he's.
And it's a funny name, Grat.
Yeah, it does.
Because it sounds like rat.
Yeah, or grout, or groat.
Groat.
A brat.
But when he when they're talking, it seems like he's trying to act like he cares, and then like this part,
They have no rights.
when that's like sort of like directly that's the point where it reveals like, oh, okay, you are really like prejudiced, you know, like it all comes out.
And by the way, the same argument that he's putting forward was put forward by people who said, "Hey, I don't think slavery is good either, but hey, what are you gonna do? You just gonna let these people go?"
Right.
I don't want to round up and genocide all the indigenous peoples of this land either. But they can't survive by themselves.
You know what? Yeah, it is a pretty shitty. Now that you're right. It is shitty because not only is it like people should have the right to like decide for themselves and fend them for themselves. If that's what they want. But then there's also this idea like we need to protect the
paternalistic.
They're not strong enough to be able. They need us to help them.
It's common in a lot of paternalism, by the way, which does not have to be only male driven. It's just this concept, this fatherly concept, fatherly control, this conceit. It exists in many power structures, of course, but it is certainly something that has been utilized frequently in the good old-fashioned white supremacy playbook, and still is to this day.
Unfortunately,
quite frequently. It's not only about racism and prejudice, of course. Often it's also about class power. And one thing that we don't get a lot of in this episode is we don't get a lot of details on how the Suliban were incorporated into the Tandoran society. I know that's because of the limitations of the story time frame and all that other good stuff.
Well, they said that the Suliban were nomadic, so they spread throughout the place. And I guess we know that Danik was friends with Clev. And
he was a head of an engineering department, so we get some clues.
And Clev was being kind of a prick. Like he's like his brother was friends with this guy, and he was he was like a couple minutes late.
He had a
and
stupid vest.
And then Clev was like, it's like we got to put you in isolation. Now I guess you could argue that Clev would have gotten in trouble if he didn't do it, but at the same time, I don't. See, here's the thing though. What's interesting is they were obviously dicks. It was it was an internment camp. They suck.
Clev is such. Grant is a great name, and Clev is a great name for a piece of shit.
It was an internment camp. It sucked. It was terrible. But like as far as shows often go to portray these people, relatively speaking, with how other shows might portray such a thing, the Tandarans didn't seem like ridiculously cruel.
Yeah.
They were
that one guy kind of did.
Well,
but
that was just one of the nicer internment camps they mentioned.
Oh, that is right.
That was one of the nicer
that doesn't take anything away from the fact that it's a terrible fucking internment camp. But they weren't like.
Just clean.
This isn't making an excuse for him. What I'm saying is, it's interesting that they didn't portray them as like super duper cruel assholes.
I think in order for the message to really get across, and in order for it to be realistic, there has to be that factor where it's like, these are regular people. These are not necessarily psychopaths. Now, on the other hand, you can get a situation where you attract psychopaths, like maybe Clev is on that spectrum, right?
Is that short for like clevered? Clevin?
Cleveland?
Clevark.
Cleveronian?
Yes.
Cleveroni. I'm going to call him Cleveroni and Grat Balls.
Yeah, Grat Balls.
What?
Cleveroni and Grat Balls. That's what Clev and Grat are known. Hey.
Okay, I think it's time for a break.
Whoa.
Oh, you know what? I think. Oh boy. Isaac, you're right. Thanks, Isaac.
That dude shut your ass.
It's helpful. We'll take a quick break and then we'll continue this conversation. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, how's it going, pal? Hi, cutie. You look great in powder blue.
Powder blue.
Have you had a chance to reconsider?
So, point number one about
Helix deployments.
Steen Dockwell is that he has that
clean Sockwell.
He's able to convey that
clean
humanity.
Clean sock drawer.
He's able to portray somebody. he's
Spot Mosserman.
He's able to portray somebody in charge, truly in charge of this place. He's doing his job, and he's got a certain humanity about him, even if we hate what he's doing, even if we hate him, which I think is helpful and important. Or the other really great thing about Dean Stockwell here is
clean sock drawer.
Is just how all the meetings between Grat and Archer are wonderful, because the first one is your typical like, hey, how's it going? I'm so sorry. Like we're on the same level. I apologize. Everything's blah 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 blah. And then the second one, where Archer comes in, and this is the thing I do love about Archer, the character of Archer, where he can't help but be passive aggressively like sarcastic about shit. Like he just lets people know what he thinks about them, and he finds it really hard not to, even if it's going to severely undermine his position that he's currently in. Right?
I'm from Earth,
because he goes into that second meeting with Grat and is just like, "Fuck you, man." He's like, "Oh, blah blah blah, hey, blah 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 blah." But Dean Stockwell, again, he's able to play right at that same level and be like, "Fuck you, man," you know. and each meeting it accelerates, or it goes higher and higher, the tension between them.
Yeah, the first meeting was almost seemed like they could have been chums if Archer would have played along, like they would have totally been chums.
Sure.
And he was just like, I'm sorry we have to have you here.
And if it wasn't as
but then he
fucked
found
up
out
a situation.
But then he found out he found out that Archer had knowledge about the Suliban, specifically
Silic.
that specifically Silic,
which is a silly name.
Yeah, that is a silly name.
Silly Silic, that's what they call him.
Silic.
Well, not spotted, well-eared.
Silic.
Well heard.
So when he found out
this is well heard.
when he found out that Archer had information about Silic and the Suliban, that's though when it really started to turn, because he was like, "Oh, you're useful to me now," and that showed another sort of side of their dickishness. It's like, "Oh well, we'll let you go and be friends with you until you can like." We can utilize you in some way, and then we have no qualms with keeping you like trapped here. And that is also when the whole like they're trying to be nice to the Suliban by putting him in internment camp thing falls apart, because it's like, oh, the second like you can exploit me for whatever reason you will, but it also just goes to show how fearful they are, which is usually most of this kind of fucked up shit happens from fear anyways, so it's not an excuse, but
but fear is the tool that generates fraudulent excuses or fake excuses, or I don't know what the best term is, because the people might truly believe in them. Like I said, these are people who they think in some fashion that they're doing the right thing, even if they should know better.
But somebody's telling them to be afraid.
Yeah,
somebody higher up is.
It's a structural thing, and then there's this utilitarian sort of approach where it's like you said, Dan. It's like as soon as Archer becomes useful, it's like, okay, I don't give a fuck about your rights now either. I don't give a fuck about the Suliban's rights. As soon as we're scared enough, the rights go out the window. That's like not what rights are supposed to mean, right?
All Suliban are dangerous.
Suliban, Cabal. Suliban, Cabal. It's all the same to you.
Yeah. Do you know who that guy was?
You wouldn't be surprised if I slithered up this wall or turned my face inside out.
Slithered.
Sagen, that's who it was.
Yeah, but that guy, the actor, Christopher Shea, or Shea, Christopher Shea.
How do you spell it?
S-H-E-A.
Oh,
I think that's Shea.
He was like a
I would say
Vorta.
Shea.
Did he play a Vorta?
Not only did he play a Vorta, he played Kevin on Deep Space Nine, and you might remember Kevin. I think he had a couple appearances. One was Rocks and Shoals, where he got captured initially, but we all enjoyed Kevin when we discussed The Magnificent Ferengi.
Right.
Where he got killed by accident, and they had to animate him, and it was, the actor played the hilarious dead Kevin. And before he died, he's just like, this guy could play a real good asshole. Mm-hmm. He's really good at playing like a slimy, shady dude. And I thought this character of Sagen was a nice twist on that, where he starts out as being this kind of prick, but there is a certain growth and redemption by the end.
Yeah, Sagen was like giving Mayweather shit. That's when he was saying all the shit like,
it's all the same to you.
He's like saying like accusing Mayweather of being racist and prejudiced, or specious would be the right word, wouldn't it? And then but
he wasn't entirely wrong.
No, he wasn't.
Again, I think just difficult for them to convey all these things on screen, given the time and production capacity.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, he was the one. I mean, yes, Mayweather was being like that, but then Mayweather admitted it later when he was like,
"But I did."
He's like, right?
Why can't you?
He's all admitting that. I'm like,
"But I did."
He's like, at first I didn't like you. Did something like admit I was wrong. What did he say? He said something. He said like
he couldn't get past his prejudice of Suliban.
When I first came here, it wasn't easy to see past my preconceptions about the Suliban.
But I did. Why can't you?
Yes.
But I did. Why can't you? But I did. Why can't you? But I did. Why can't you? But I did. Why can't you?
But like the whole time, Sagen was also being kind of like, prejudiced against, specious against the humans the whole time. And in fact, at one point, Danik was all just Because he was saying, what did he say? He said like, humans never heard of you before,
Yeah.
and then Danik was like, stop being rude.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was supposed to imply that he knew what humans were and like was just being an asshole.
I don't know.
Humans never heard of them.
Nobody knows about humans around these parts.
They just got out there. That's the first shit.
They know
that's-
about Klingons
that
around
goes.
that part.
Yeah,
Well,
'cause
Klingons been around.
Yeah,
baby.
Klingons have been flying around doing stuff long before humans. Humans just now got Warp 5, Dan. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Vulcans held them back. Yeah, no, the Sagen stuff is interesting partly because...
Anyway, Sagen was basically hating on humans from the
Yeah,
start. So they were both like guilty of it.
Yeah,
and-
the difference, of course, there is a nuanced difference, is that Sagen is coming from the oppressed side. He's being oppressed, so he
but
has...
not by humans, by Tandaran.
But the humans look like Tandar.
Right, which is
and humans come from a society where like things are a lot better and it's easy for them to like humans aren't like ignorant.
And from a
anymore,
storytelling,
like,
and there's a storytelling reason for this, which is it's illustrating the point that when you have been crushed by an oppressive force, one of the difficulties in emerging from that can be in finding allies and trusting allies who look like the same fucking group.
I know, but that
You
doesn't
know?
but first of all, humans and Tandarans do look a bit different. I know they look very similar.
They had funny foreheads.
But you could say the same thing about why Mayweather was wary of Suliban because Suliban. Okay, first of all, I know that Suliban.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think the whole point is that they're both wrong.
Wait. So the Suliban, they have genetic enhancements. They not all of them. Some of them.
No, only the bad.
Only the bad ones.
Only the bad guys.
But they can all morph around. Only the bad ones.
Only the bad ones.
That's
can
the
do
genetic
that.
enhancement. I wasn't clear.
Regular
on that.
old Suliban are just crusty people.
Right.
under
And
a door.
so that was my point: is that Mayweather was
Squeezy.
specious against Suliban based upon their interactions.
Yeah.
And so, Sagen, for the same reason, Sagen was specious against the humans because they look like Tandarans. Neither of them were right. My point is that Sagen was accusing Mayweather of being specious, and as Mayweather pointed out, I learned and I accepted it. Why can't you do it? So, like, dude. Sometimes I get paranoid, like Sagen. What was he do? He was accusing someone of something of being specious when I keep saying specious, and every time I say it, I think.
Well,
of
in
that
Star
word
Trek land, it's difficult to determine what
Yeah.
the appropriate term is.
Right. So
Functionally, it's racist.
So basically, he
prejudice.
was accusing someone of being specious without realizing he was doing himself. That makes me wonder about the times in my life when I've like been angry at someone and accused them of being a certain way. Do you ever get paranoid that when you're accusing someone of a certain thing, like you might you might actually be guilty of it yourself without realizing?
And-
like I'm super paranoid about that.
Well, it's not only you needn't be paranoid about it because you've definitely done it. We've all done it.
Don't be paranoid because paranoid implies that it might.
Paranoid means you're not sure.
Yeah, you're right. That's what I'm saying. Paranoid means
you should be confident in the fact that you've
you
gotten
have
this
done
wrong.
that you have done it.
And nearly everyone has gotten this wrong.
Let me clarify. Every time I do accuse someone of something, I'm always paranoid each time. Am I doing it this time?
Yes.
That's what I'm always paranoid
And
about.
yeah, I
which
get
Sagen
you.
was doing.
Which I think is a good attitude to have in this type of scenario.
It just involves being stressed out a lot.
Well, because that's the thing. And when it comes to oppressive forms of power, in which almost all of us listening to this podcast are influenced by in one capacity or another, wherever we are in that framework. Part of how those power structures are maintained is by draining and sapping the energy of the people who are being oppressed, and by putting up barriers to those people getting together and fucking overthrowing your dumbasses,
labeling
like
them all
Clev.
as terrorists,
like beating the fuck out of Clev,
And
right?
and giving him shitty food. Although I don't know, Mayweather thought it looked like valve sealant. Kind of looked like some delicious potato salad to
I
me.
know. I was kind of thinking. Well, okay. Step back.
See, that's why you got to wait for me to finish
Yeah.
my sentence, Patrick. That's why, because you don't necessarily know what I'm going to say.
But did you finish your sentence?
I did, but Patrick started talking before I was done because he said I know, and then he's like, wait a minute.
I mean, to me,
let me take it back.
it didn't look like any potato salad. I'd say it looked like grits or something.
Yeah,
Didn't it look like grits?
not
Jesse?
good grits.
It looked like potato salad to me.
I didn't look like something I was eager to have, but
No.
it didn't look like some sort of horrible gruel.
It looked
either.
like delicious potato salad to me. Not just potato salad, delicious potato salad. I wanted some.
We should do a podcast on some of the things Dan's eaten.
That's right.
Dan, what are you eating?
What have you eaten?
Just too damn curious.
Dan, what have you been eating?
Dan is too curious. Okay. So, as promised,
We're dangerous.
on our fun, lighthearted comedy podcast,
We're dangerous.
We're dangerous.
We're dangerous.
Yeah.
We're dangerous.
Yeah, we're gonna get you.
We're
Oh
dangerous.
my god.
Oh no.
Oh no.
We're dangerous.
You better watch out. You want to know why? Because
We're dangerous.
My favorite part about this is I'm about to give some very sad facts about the Japanese internment camps. So,
It's a big problem with me.
I think it's helpful context. I think many people are aware of this, of what was referenced in this episode about the Japanese internment camps. But I think for those who aren't, and for those who need to be reminded, just a little, very limited background. But during World War II, the United States transferred well over 125,000 people of Japanese descent into prison camps. And what's especially fucked up, I think, is that 2/3 of these people were second or third generation U.S. citizens, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not just, look, it's not cool to put just random immigrants into internment camps either, but the justification saying that these people were not American, that's pure racism, because they were U.S. citizens, right?
And Dan expresses that by the fact when he says that was friends with Clev's brother,
Exactly.
and talking about how they're nomadic and they've grown up in different parts of the.
And I think a thing that highlights the security theater aspect of this of the whole Japanese internment camp thing was that the government did try to do similar things. The U.S. government did try to do a sort of have a similar program with German and Italian immigrants, but only a few thousand were imprisoned. Almost none of those were U.S. citizens. There were millions of first generation Italian and German immigrants in the country at the time. Right. So they didn't round those people up for one reason or another. You can take a few guesses.
Why?
They were white.
Similarly, there were over 150,000 Japanese Americans living in Hawaii. They weren't imprisoned. Mm-hmm. And you could say, okay, well, Hawaii was under martial law. But yeah, I mean, like there was Pearl Harbor and other important military stuff there. So it was about assuaging non-Japanese people's fears, and probably mostly white people, but not only, we were at war with Japan, Germany, and Italy. And people weren't too keen on Germans and Italians either, but they're like, but I can recognize the Japanese person. Right? That's especially fucked up. It's all fucked up all around, but that's what makes it so horrible, is that it's easy to identify these people in our society. So let's pluck them out and put them in an internment camp. And that's what's happened here with this episode. It's very easy to tell the Suliban from the Tandorans for a variety of reasons. But
my skin is really starting to itch.
Suliban has kind of cheese all over.
But yeah,
that line right there was a little weird because because you could just say, oh yeah, they put on it's just the alien makeup in general is uncomfortable, but like that's the only time they've ever said something like that while wearing alien makeup, and it was definitely supposed to be like
what did Phlox do?
They were definitely, I think it was definitely supposed to imply like it feels how it looks, and which is kind of like a weird. I didn't know what that line really meant. There's another line Archer gave too about he said he's talking about Silic.
He's about this tall, little on the scrawny side, bad teeth.
Bad teeth.
Bad teeth.
And then there was another line is something about like I look better than you. I feel better than you look. I gotta find this line. Oh wait, here it is. It's when Malcolm gets to Travis to Mayweather when he's like all Suliban out, and Travis is like Malcolm, and then reads like in the flesh, oh, you look worse than I do. And so that was being like Malcolm has like the Suliban makeup on, and he's talking to Mayweather who's beat up, and he's like, you look worse than I do, implying that
I'm an ugly alien.
I'm an ugly Suliban, that and the itching thing. I don't know. It was kind of a weird sort of like, I don't know what the writing was trying to imply with that. Like, are they?
Oh, no,
Were they
it was-
trying to say Malcolm was being specious himself, or were they just not realizing
No,
that?
he was making a joke.
Yeah, I know, but the joke was like, "You look worse than I do."
And Malcolm's always a little bit racist.
I mean, and like when
all of these humans,
it's,
like,
it's saying
are they
you
all
look
a little racist.
It's saying like Suliban looked gross and itchy and yucky, and that's
Yeah.
like. If the character of Malcolm was presented as being kind of like that, then it would make more sense. But it just kind of seems like the writers were making joke, not sort of seeing the irony in making a joke like that.
Well,
I don't know.
I hadn't really considered that, and that's a good question about whether it was the character or the writer. Was it
Why?
Was this like a Rick Berman thing?
Yeah, right.
I did like on Twitter, I think it was Jesse from Open Pike Night, from the Open Pike Night podcast, another super brilliant, excellent, wonderful podcast everyone should be listening to. Compared the the texture of the Suliban skin, I think quite aptly, to that of breakfast cereal.
Yeah.
And ever since he mentioned it, I want to just nibble on their crunchy.
Some kind of like Captain Crunch or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and maybe it's like.
If it's all the same to you, I'd rather hear that from the captain.
Or like if you soak some cornflakes in milk for a while and then like just plaster it on somebody.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you can do
that'd
that
be
too. I remember digging Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch is all right.
All right, yeah.
If it's all the same to you, I'd rather hear that from the captain.
It was hard on your mouth.
Crunchberry. Yeah, it was hard on the roof of your mouth.
I just like those little Captain Nuggets.
Captain Nuggets,
The wheat colored Captain Nuggets. They're not wheat, but like they were sugary
were
Captain.
were they
it's like I just wanted to crush them up
barrels
and
or
put them on
what
stuff.
were they supposed to be?
I don't know what they were supposed to be.
Did you want to crush them up and put them in like Cool Whip or ice cream or something?
Cool Whip?
No, I just put them on.
We never had Cool Whip in
'em
my
on
house.
I never had Cool Whip in my house either, but I recently started getting into Cool Whip.
My dad got Cool Whip, and then my mom would get like Ready Whip.
I don't even know what's the difference. Is
Well, Ready Whip's in the spray thing.
Is it this? But that's whipped cream. That's different.
Right.
Cool Whip, Ready Whip, and Miracle Whip are all very different things.
Miracle Whip.
Ready Whip is actual whipped cream.
Yeah, Miracle
but
Whip
in
is
an aerosolized can.
Right.
Miracle Whip is like
nitrous oxide in it.
Miracle Whip is like weird fake sugary mayonnaise.
Well, yeah, but that's
Mayonnaise.
that's completely different than whipped cream or Cool.
I know, but they all have the word whip in them.
If you're using,
You can't argue with it. They do.
if you're
Ready
using,
Whip, Miracle.
Yes,
Oh my god.
I guess.
He's trying to push buttons.
if you are using Ready Whip or whatever the local version of this is in your country, where it is aerosolized with nitrous gas, you must be very careful not to accidentally inhale the nitrous gas, because if you do, you will be talking to God for a few minutes, and there's just nothing that can be done about it.
There's nothing that can be done.
Yeah, so don't do that by accident.
No, hilarity ensues.
You just don't ever do it by accident. Only do it on purpose.
I think it's interesting that I didn't get into Miracle Whip until I was an adult, and then I started getting really into it. You know,
I thought you were going to say,
funny.
I think it's interesting I didn't get into Harvard.
saw that upside down
Because
Ready
I was
Whip.
doing whippets.
You know, they people talk about how in Russia when they eat salads with mayonnaise.
In
as their
Russia,
dressing.
we have no mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise.
No, in Russia they use mayonnaise.
Now who's pushing buttons?
In Russia, they use mayonnaise on their salads, right? And as an American, we might think that's weird. But the thing is I've seen what kind of mayonnaise they use. It's not your run-of-the-mill mayonnaise. It's more like Miracle Whip. It's more sugary and dressingy.
But
they call it mayonnaise.
Dressing is, kind of mayonnaise-y based.
Yeah, right. But could you imagine just taking straight like Hellman's mayonnaise and putting it in the salad?
Hey, Jesse, are we? I forget. If we decided whether or not we're calling Dan out this week on this whole mayonnaise thing.
Your curiosity almost got you killed.
Keep saying mayonnaise.
Well, it's been tried before.
I can't permit that.
Yes, mayonnaise, Ready Whip, nitrous oxide abuse.
Son of a bitch.
I'm trying to work backwards to what we were talking about. Oh yeah, crusty faces. Oh yes, I know what I wanted to say.
Crusty face.
I was reminded in this episode, and I think this episode, for unsurprising reasons, given how many Suliban are represented, it reminded me that I think that the Suliban are really one of the more impressive makeup jobs on Star Trek. That texture to their skin does really, I don't know, it evokes something in you. I don't know. It's there's a simplicity.
All Suliban are dangerous.
It's more like all over.
There's a simplicity to it, but it's also, I don't know, there's depth. There's depth to that texture.
Yeah, you can tell when Malcolm, first of all, when he opens that door to rescue Mayweather, the door is unlocked.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's an internment camp. That's the whole thing's a prison, so they don't. They're not locked in. Yeah.
Okay, that explains that. But anyway, when he says hi to,
see, it's not a prison.
Right. So when Mayweather when he says hi to Mayweather, he all like laughs and he goes like. This is talking about what you were saying, Patrick, to the depth of the makeup. When you see him laugh, his face looks a little weird. Like if it just was paint, it would look like Malcolm with paint, like laughing. But there's a stiffness to his laughter that it seems like there's something thick and caked on that's obstructing the movement of his mouth.
You know what I love about that?
It's a bunch of cereal they caked on.
Yeah. I loved that when the door opened, I immediately knew that was Malcolm. Now, partly that's because I've seen this episode a number of times, but I'm confident that the first time I saw this episode, I also would have immediately known it was Malcolm because he's just standing like Malcolm Reed. He's got the Malcolm Reed face on.
Well, so interesting you bring that up. The Malcolm with Mayweather versus the Malcolm versus Archer scene. In the Malcolm versus Mayweather scene, he goes, "I understand you're looking for a way out of here." And Mayweather's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Don't you recognize me, Travis?"
Yeah,
and that
sounds just like him.
Yeah, that sounds what Malcolm sounds like. And in that case, Mayweather didn't recognize him, and Malcolm was giving him shit for it. And then Archer later, he goes, "It's good to see you, Malcolm." And Malcolm goes, "How'd you know it was me?" So in the first interaction with Mayweather, Malcolm was like, "Why didn't you guess it was me? You should have known it was me. Don't you recognize me? You should recognize me." But in the second one with Archer, he was like, "How'd you know it was me?
He's the
How'd you
captain.
know it was me?"
He's the captain.
No, that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that...
I know, Jesse's making a separate but related point.
The point I'm making is that Malcolm was giving Mayweather shit for not recognizing him, but then he was simultaneously surprised that Archer did recognize him. See, what he should have said to Archer, he should have been like, can you believe Malcolm didn't recognize me? I knew you would, though. I knew you would, though, Captain. I knew you would, but Malcolm didn't. Instead, he goes like, "How'd you recognize me?" You know, it was inconsistent. Do you see the point I'm making?
Yes.
But of course, yeah, it's true. What you said is true as well.
But of course.
But of course.
But of course.
Don't you recognize me? How'd you recognize me? Don't you recognize me? How'd you recognize me? Two opposing things in two different conversations.
I think things are being a little too funny. I think I need to remind folks that the people in real life who were put into the Japanese internment camps, the Japanese Americans,
there was no laughing matter,
who were put into the internment camps, prison camps, they lost their businesses and livelihoods. They did nothing wrong. When they were finally released, they got nothing back at all until 1988, when Congress and President Reagan signed into law the Civil Liberties Act of 1988.
It's amazing it took until 1988.
Which granted $20,000 to all surviving Japanese prisoners. It took them a few years. I think it was $1.8 billion over the course of 4 years that was ultimately distributed to over 80,000, I think about 85,000 people who were still alive. Wasn't perfect, wasn't a lot, but you know, it's something, I suppose. Goes to show you it's really hard to address that sort of historic wrong, particularly when time goes by, right? Because for all the reasons people can guess. The whole business is really fascinating. It's upsetting. We're a humorous podcast, so we'll get back to the fun stuff. But I do think it's good to learn about this stuff. And by the way, there's a really good book by George Takei. He did an illustrated book of his experiences living in the camps because, again, for those who aren't aware, I think most people are, but George Takei, who played Sulu, as a boy, he was put into one of these camps. He saw his family lose their livelihood. He was forced to live this experience. And he was one of the people who fought for many years for reparations and for highlighting these events, making sure people don't forget about them. Actually, in many cases, making sure people know about them. Sometimes they're learning from him for the first time. And he has a book called They Called Us Enemy. Again, it's an illustrated book. He worked with some other people, some artists and stuff to put that together. By all accounts, it's a really good book. I'm planning to pick it up. I was inspired by this episode to order that off of Amazon, so I'm looking forward to reading that. And I think he has a new kids book coming out. I don't know the title of it, but he's got a kids coloring book, not a coloring book, a kids comic book that also conveys this stuff, but is geared towards younger kids. So something for next Christmas, maybe.
The kids called us enemy.
Yeah, I think that's right. But the other thing that's interesting about this whole business is that this episode, season 1 of Enterprise, of course, was filmed mostly, not all of it, but most of it was written and produced before the events of September 11th, 2001, but premiered, most of them aired afterwards, right? And so this is airing in April of 2002, very shortly after September 11th, 2001. And then there again, you have fear and racism and prejudice causing all sorts of insanity in the United States. And it must have been very interesting. I watched this at the time, but I can't recall making the connections or necessarily thinking about it at the time. But the fact that this is telling a story that was meant to be an allegory about something that happened in the 1940s in America, and here it was, there was the threat that this type of thing might be happening again as people were on the news calling for rounding up all Arab Americans and violence against, even people, like Sikhs, people who had turbans.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the Middle East at all, and they were getting targeted for attacks. So
it's crazy how we look back on back in the 40s or whatever, and we're like, man, we were monsters back then. And then you see it happening all over again. Yeah. And it's like, no, but these guys are, this is different. These guys are different
because now we have flip phones and now we have smartphones. Back then, they had shitty ass phones. It's all about which phone you have at a given time.
Well, the Archer met Danik because Danik cut him in front of him in line.
Yeah,
that was fucked up.
Yeah,
that was. He didn't. It's a bad first impression,
Yeah.
But then Archer goes and assumes he's part of the Cabal because he's specious.
Well, this is all just to get it out there. I do think this is a very nicely told story, given the constraints of the time that they had, because they keep layering these examples of people being prejudiced towards each other. And let's look at that term, prejudging, and that's causing the problem.
That happened on the ship when originally Trip Tucker III, he wanted to mount a rescue off the start, and T'Pol was wanted to be chill about it.
T'Pol,
and T'Pol was telling him that he needs to respect the laws of alien cultures if he wants to get along with them, because he was being too forward, and she was trying to negotiate. And then she says, and Captain Archer would agree, but it's funny because Archer, from the very start, like I just said, he assumed that a Suliban was part of the Cabal. Yeah. So, I don't know if Archer would have agreed or not. Or maybe she was just saying that to please him. But Archer didn't exactly respect Suliban culture, just like Trip Tucker III wasn't exactly respecting Tandaran culture.
No, but I do agree with T'Pol that were it other people on the planet and Archer were still in command, I agree, for the sake of their safety, I think Archer, even this early stage Archer, would have known well enough that you have to try a few diplomatic things first. Otherwise, you are more likely to have your person murdered. Because you got to remember, they don't know what's going on. They have no information at all, right? And we have zero information on people. You got to be more careful. They don't know that as far as the Tandorans are concerned at that stage, that Archer and Mayweather are just whoopsie daisies,
Whoopsie daisy.
Classic case of whoopsie daisies.
Danik says this.
Tandar sector.
Not only does he say sector, he says Tandar. Sector, Tandar.
Did it make you think of a tandoor oven?
No, it did to me.
It kept making me think of I wanted some lamb.
A 10 door with 10 doors?
No, a tandoor.
See, because Spock would have said sector, but do you think Spock would have said
Tandar sector?
Or do you think he would have said Tandar sector?
Tandar sector.
Tandar sector.
Tandar sector.
It almost sounds like the Elf King from The Hobbit. Tandar sector.
Oh, and then...
No, Gandalf. No, it's Celeborn, right? Where is Gandalf? I'd very much like to speak with him. How does that line go? I'd very much like to speak with him.
You'd be better off getting the electric chair.
That was another part where T3 was being all like, that was when T'Pol was like, we can get some Vulcan High Command out.
chair.
We can get some Vulcan High Command
Okay, I
out.
think it's time for a break.
Oh no, sorry, it's not my call, Dan.
Oh no.
In this case, it's all on Isaac this week. We'll take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
It's past curfew.
Okay, we're back.
So what I was saying.
Hello.
What I was saying.
You were saying something.
That
So it says to Mabel.
So T3 was all talking about like
where will I stay?
T'Pol was saying that they could get the Vulcan High Command to arbitrate, and then Tucker was saying like
lying about a lawyer.
Be better off getting the electric chair. 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 Be better off getting the electric chair.
Because in the
Electric
22nd
chair, electric 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 chair.
Be better off getting the electric chair. Be better off getting the electric chair. Be better off getting the electric chair.
Electric chair, electric chair.
Yeah, a little call and response.
But I did. Why can't you? But I did. Why can't you? But I did. Why can't you? But I did. Why can't you?
Why can't you?
They might be willing to help us. 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 I know some people there. 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 They might be willing to help us. 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 I know some people there. I know some people there.
I'm not going to help you
I
plan
like the- I
our
like the-
suicide. I'm not going to help you
I know
plan
some people
our
there.
suicide. I'm not going to help you plan our suicide. I'm not going to help you plan our suicide.
They might be willing to help us. They might be willing to help us.
Information. I'm Colonel Grat. 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 Information.
I take it you're the man in charge. I take it you're the man in charge. I take it you're the man in charge. You're given genetic tricks as payment. I know that you're given genetic. 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 You're given genetic tricks as payment. I
For
take
new
it you're the man
listeners,
in
this is the
charge.
equivalent of this is the It's Got Star Trek equivalent of the 7th inning stretch. Oh my god.
So
Quantum Fleep.
So yeah, this episode was basically, like you were saying, Patrick, it was layering on top concepts of prejudice.
More like
It was
quantum
about
creep.
It was like about prejudice, tolerance, and an understanding. One thing it was trying to say was, of course, that not all Suliban were bad, right? That was one message we got from the start. We got T'Pol saying that they need to respect Tendarin's laws, like we mentioned before. Oh, there was the part where Danek's daughter tells Mayweather that he looks like Tendarin's, so that was another sort of angle of like...
Out of the mouths of babes.
Trip Tucker III isn't tolerant of the Vulcan High Command. Danik is confused by Archer's handshake when they meet, so that's kind of like, reminding us that, like, the different cultures are different. Aliens.
It's like then he saw aliens.
That's some inside baseball, and we're gonna keep it that way. When Reed was like, in the flesh, you look worse than I do. Of course, when Reed was dressed up as a Suliban, he was
As
sort
an
of
alien.
He was talking about how Suliban were ugly. That's sort of like some. And then and then when Reed said, "Tell the doctor to meet us in sick bay. My skin is really starting to itch. Starting to itch." So yeah, there was a lot of instances in this episode where there were all sorts of, whether it was about about tolerance, whether it was about prejudice, whether it was about understanding, everything was sort of revolved around this subject of like different cultures and like what one culture means to another culture from differing perspectives, So yeah,
I thought again it was well constructed, well conveyed.
Life's an each.
There's a lot more to this story I would have liked to seen, but I wasn't disappointed in this story.
You would have liked to seen?
I would have liked to have seen.
Okay, you didn't say that, so I was confused.
I would have liked to have. I said I would have liked to have seen.
You said I would have liked to seen.
I understand how it may have come across
Play
that
back
way.
the tape. play back the tape.
I would have seen. I would have seen.
Hologram.
Volume boy.
Holograms.
Yes. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes you get an episode and it doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite get the point across. I thought this episode did a great job of getting the point across. I do think that it is such an interesting / heavy topic, especially in the context of this time period, pre-Federation, so much of the storyline of Enterprise being Archer in particular, but sort of his crew in general having to deal with their prejudices and overcome them, and especially as the series progresses, right? It's an ongoing theme that Archer in particular has to deal with. I thought that they did a really good job. I would have liked it. It made me want more, and I thought there was more that they could have done. But I really liked what we got, and I thought they did a good job with it. And the other thing that I thought was really worth mentioning was, I think the special effects were good. The sets were kind of creative and expansive.
Yeah,
there was so much stuff going on.
Yeah, I even liked the shot of when T3 was getting into the shuttle, and it shows the shuttle launching from the Enterprise. You see it like the top down. It's like gets lowered into space, and I don't know. I thought that was a cool shot.
The home audience is missing Dan miming
a shuttle going down.
miming what he claims to be a shuttle being deployed from the
Where
belly.
would I stay?
From the belly of the Enterprise.
But I will, and then it like shot up the camp. Although I'm curious as to like what good those fucking turrets were if some like shitty little shuttlecraft can just take them all out in one shot. You think that's why they make turrets? Unless they weren't surface to air turrets, they were just to keep the prisoners in. But you'd think they'd have some better surface to air weaponry. That some dumb little shuttle couldn't like go take out their whole shit.
It's a classic issue in sci-fi more generally. Certainly true of Star Trek, where there tends to be a certain parity of capabilities, except when dramatically it doesn't, there isn't, or dramatically you need to have somebody who's more advanced or less advanced.
The way they jammed the signal was kind of confusing. I wasn't really sure what was going when they jammed the signal.
Like in Spaceballs when they
when she was all like,
"What about dinner? Do you eat meat?"
Bunch of jam eaters.
What about dinner?
Let's play that
Bunch
again.
of jam eaters.
That tickled Dan.
I did like that.
Bunch of jam eaters.
Thank you, Isaac.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That totally caught Dan off guard. I was saving that one in reserve. I didn't know you were actually going to talk about jamming something, so that made it easy.
Well, yeah, when
I was going to make a Spaceballs joke about the Spaceballs.
Right. Okay. Yes, I know.
We've been jammed.
Yes, I know. Raspberry. Haha. Yeah.
Lone Star.
When
the bleeps that creeps in the suite.
When she was all like,
"What about dinner?"
And that's what they used to jam their signal. Like it wasn't clear how exactly they jammed their signal.
They were doing a DDoS attack.
I was thinking that I was thinking they were doing a DDoS, but you know what?
Why don't you all tell the audience how I'm miming DDoS?
I know he's doing something with his fingers where he's like he's giving some kind of like forceful like inverse jazz hands or something. Like
no, jazz hands are like this.
That's why I said forceful inverse.
Is this an inverse to this?
That's not an inverse.
Look. No, okay,
right, we'll discuss it off.
It's like a 90 degree difference.
So my point, yes, I was thinking, like, is it kind of like a DDoS? They were overloading their shit from a bunch of different...
sending a bunch of stuff.
But then why would they have to... If they were doing that, like, they wouldn't need... Okay, they opened the line of communication, and then they just sent a bunch of stuff.
And then they beamed down...
But it seemed a little...
It
seemed a little too easy, because, like, why don't they just do that all the time, Like, why did that happen to work then? You'd think they'd have an anti-DDoS system.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying, is like, yes, I understand what probably happened. They overloaded their system, but I have a hard time believing that they didn't have the technology to prevent such an attack from happening, because they didn't even explain really what they were doing. They just did it.
The thing is the Tandarans don't seem to be like an especially advanced or technologically advanced group of people.
I don't know. They had those shock sticks.
Yeah, you mean cattle prods?
No, they were shock sticks.
You mean cattle prods?
No, because they shot out like a laser They shot a short range laser at him.
You mean
A
Slightly more advanced cattle prod.
A cattle prod. No, it's a totally different technology. It's kind of like
totally different.
it is because
a stick that shocks somebody.
No, it's totally different.
death.
Because like a taser has 2 points that go
yeah,
in
no,
between each other, and you zap them. But this actually shot something outward.
No. Look,
it's kind
I
of like how
understand your distinction.
It's
I'm
kind of
mocking it.
I know you're mocking it, and if you're going to mock something I say, I'm allowed to defend myself.
Okay.
You can't mock me and be like,
you're not.
I understand what you're saying, Dad. I was just mocking you. You can't like double mock. That's a double mock. That you're setting.
That's true. That's kind of like a hat on a hat.
You can't set yourself up with a mock for another mock like that. It doesn't work like that.
Mock trial with Judge Reinhold.
No.
Mock trial.
It just
that's an Arrested
doesn't
Development
like.
Jay Reinhold.
It's like
yeah.
it's like if I do these sound effects, it's less effective if I'm like, hey Patrick, hey Jesse, Jesse and Patrick, do you want some dinner, guys? Are you hungry?
Do you eat meat?
Like that's like it's not as funny because I set myself up for it. It's like in volleyball, you can't set yourself up for a spike. You have to set it up for somebody else. So when you were
That's a good
mocking,
analogy.
you mocked.
That's a good
Fuck
analogy.
volleyball.
You set up a mock with your own mock. You double mocked me. Anyways,
Valid point. I agree.
what were we talking about? Shock sticks.
Shock sticks.
Shock sticks look more.
Shostavascada.
They look more like a short-range laser, or maybe even kind of lightsabery in a way.
They wear like a little mini lightsaber. Yeah. But the one thing I noticed about the we see a lot in Enterprises. They do a good job with these outdoor sets, right? To make they were
especially like the one where they played space rugby with the guard from Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, Desert Crossing.
Desert Crossing, yeah.
Clancy Brown.
That was a good outdoor set.
Yeah,
It was a different kind of set though.
You just thought of that because you thought of volleyball, which made you think of like that weird game they were playing, that highlight.
Yeah,
you
said outdoor sets were good, and I was like, that was a lot of eye candy in that outdoor set.
Oh, okay, yes, because Archer was all oiled up, and he also ate balls in that one. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I remember that. He ate balls.
Yes, I did.
You should, folks, if you're interested in an old episode of the It's Got Star Trek podcast, scroll back. I can't remember. It's, I don't know, 20, something like that, when we discuss Desert Crossing, because Dan goes on an excellent rant about eating balls that I think everyone will enjoy.
You wouldn't be surprised if I slithered up this wall or turned my face inside out.
Sometimes, Dan. But with these sets, one thing that I really appreciated on this watch, because it's been a little while since I've seen this episode, is that I'm watching this on one of these, new fancy big TVs that everyone.
Look at Patrick with the big fancy TV. Oh man. Oh hey Patrick, how fancy is your TV? Should I be able to save up so one day I can afford your big fancy TV?
So I'm going to give that to Dan because he was, he's right. He deserves to get back at me a little bit. Unfortunately,
You have a big TV.
His TV's bigger than mine.
I put it on your wall.
I know. And then he took it off.
And then he took it off, and you put it on
I
his
had
wall.
to go over and help him. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this TV's really heavy. This is a giant TV.
It's modest.
Big.
It's modestly large.
It's modest. Jesus Christ. Anyway, my point being is Enterprise first show shot in HD. I mean, originally, at this stage is still on film, but broadcast in HD.
I think it was shot in just D.
Are you making a D's nuts joke?
What? What's that?
What now?
So it's shot in HD on film, but presented in HD, and I don't remember previously when I watched it on much smaller screens when I was much younger and poorer, and when the technology limited our screen size.
I don't know if poorer is the correct word.
Poorer, less wealthy.
Okay.
More impoverished.
More impoverished. Yes, that word. I don't remember as much dynamism, as much action going on these little digital sets, and there's like little cars running around, and little people running around, and it was stuff that I remember seeing little bits and pieces of that, but the collective whole, how much effort was put into something that a lot of people wouldn't even necessarily notice at the time because the TVs they were watching on a 27-inch TV or whatever. I find that really impressive. I thought that there was a lot of really good work done in the conceptual design of this whole little prison camp, of how they presented it, how they and how they directed it. There was some really interesting directorial decisions. This was directed by David Livingston. He directed a ton of Star Trek. But like there was that scene where they are filming them having that discussion with Captain Archer and Danik and Sajan's all like not into it or whatever, and the whole thing is being filmed from behind a grate. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
I do.
That was cool.
That was cool.
And then there was the other scene where Captain Archer and Danik are walking. They're walking down the hallway, and at first the focus is on both of them simultaneously, right? Because they're like kind of equal and they're like walking at the same level. And then Captain Archer says something. Basically, he's implying, hey, I think we're going to help you escape. And then Danik stops walking and the camera starts following Captain Archer and keeps the focus on him. Mm. Danik goes blurry in the background because he's like, whoa, what did he just say? But then he catches up and then the camera kind of turns around and then the focus goes on Danik saying like, hey, here's something, and there was a lot of really interesting dynamic stuff that Enterprise deserves some credit for, that they were really working at the advanced levels of all the stuff they'd learned over the previous series.
I remember when Enterprise came out and then thinking like, wow, this has this really cinematic feel to it.
Right from Broken Bow, which was, there was a lot of great stuff from that point
forward.
But
just seeing that very first episode, it was kind of like, it was mind-blowing. It was like Star Trek as we'd never seen it before.
There was a Klingon running around in Oklahomies.
Have you ever been to Oklahoma?
Where the wind comes sweeping through the rain.
You may have been there, or may not have.
Where the golden wheat.
But I did.
Can
Why
sure smell
can't you?
Sweet.
But
where the wind
I
comes
did.
right behind the rain.
But I did.
And where they say,
why can't you?
A yippee-ki-yo-yay. How do they say it? You were there.
Yippee-ki-yay.
But I did.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
They might be willing to help us. I know some people there. I know some people there. They might be willing to help us.
I'm sure.
They might be willing to help us. I know some people there.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Aft torpedoes. Fire.
You remember this line?
I'm triaxulating the signal, sir.
Triaxulating. I looked up triaxulation.
Is it a thing?
It's only in memory, only in Star Trek. I found it. The first thing that was returned was memory alpha.
Was
so
it
it's
only
not
this
like,
episode, or is it other episodes
well,
too?
I'm getting to that. So
okay. All right.
This guy and I'm getting to that.
By the mid-22nd century, triaxulating is... Okay, let me start over. By the mid-22nd century, triaxulating a comm signal had become a method used by Starfleet to make a signal secure.
Yeah.
So that's what they were doing.
And Hoshi was all like, yeah, we could be broadcasting in the middle of Starfleet headquarters.
She noted that a triaxulated signal would remain completely undetected even if one was sent from inside Starfleet headquarters. That was from Detained.
That's where somebody's always watching.
And then they mentioned
Which it turned out it wasn't. And I also, I don't know. I was getting nervous when you set up a technology that like no one can figure out.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Well, and then apparently the Borg triaxulated a deflector shield geometry to absorb the energy of phaser pulses modulated to change frequencies in the Voyager episode Dark Frontier.
Oh.
They, however,
and that would have predated this episode.
They, however, could not instantaneously adapt and usually took a few shots through their shields first. It did predate this episode, but not chronologically in canon.
No.
So Hoshi was really the first person to do it.
Hoshi was the first.
That's what the time war. What was it called? The temporal war.
The temporal Cold War.
Well, temporal Cold War. Maybe that's in the temporal Cold War. We heard about triaxulation through Voyager first, but
have you all heard about triaxulation?
In the temporal Cold War, we heard about triaxulating first in Voyager, but because in the show, because of the temporal war, even though we heard about it, it was because of the temporal Cold War that we heard about triaxulating before they did in Enterprise.
Okay. Yes.
Because our timeline was different than the show's timeline, and
down here it's our time,
and so
there it's their
so
time.
what the temporal Cold War was really a Cold War dealing with the viewer's time versus the show's time. That's what the temporal Cold War is really all about. It's really meta.
I don't know if Jesse's buying that, Dan.
Please!
I do.
Where do you come up with this stuff?
Another compliment I have for this episode is I thought it was really easy to follow all the action and the planning. I thought that just everything was like a really good example of like how do you convey the story that you're trying to tell. The story maybe is not quite as full and voluptuous as you might want it to be, but
voluptuous.
But
maybe they should have made it a whole season.
No, I know that's your answer is always either don't do it or do like a whole season of it.
I still think that DS9 O'Brien episode should have been 2 episodes.
Which O'Brien episode?
Chief O'Brien?
The one that
Whispers?
the one
Chief O'Brien?
The one that we did, where O'Brien was all like running away from DS9 because he thought like there was
Whispers.
Was that Whispers? Yeah, it should have been a 2-parter.
I think that was Whisper. Yeah, it was Whispers. I'm pretty
I don't
sure.
know about that.
All right.
I don't know about you.
Son of a bitch. The other we gotta wrap things up.
Wrap 'em ups.
Wrap 'em ups. Another thing that I was impressed with the writing of this episode is there were a lot of literary illusions, not illusions.
Not illusions?
Illusions. I thought there were some good tricks they played.
You better make sure you pronounce that word correctly, you know?
Because
Would you rather spend the rest of your life in prison?
That was an example of me setting myself up.
But the problem is you're undermining your earlier point because it's
English
funny.
police?
Because it keeps being funny. You keep saying that's not funny and it's
English
funny.
prison?
My bad.
No, but what I thought that they did very well.
I got a million hickeys.
And by the way, the teleplay was written by Mike Sussman and Phyllis Strong from a story by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga. But they did so much world building in this episode, and then when you watch the episode through a couple times back to back, you're like, wait a second, they tricked us. There's all this talk.
They tricked us for real.
There's all this talk about Tandor Prime and the engineering school.
Tandar
and
Prime.
The Tandar and the
Tandoori,
culture.
you're talking about tandoori.
I know.
Tandoori chicken.
I'm just real fucking hungry.
Sounds delicious.
I just love some barbecue stuff. But they keep talking about this glorious planet. The Enterprise is on their way to this planet at one point. They're talking about the courtroom and the hearing and the crowds in the street and all this other stuff. And we don't see any of it. We only see Dean Stockwell or Steen Dockwell, whichever
Clean
you prefer.
Stockwell.
We see him.
Clean sock drawer.
We see him alone in an office, and then we see some people milling about in this internment camp.
Where would I stay?
What the fuck is going on? Why is he Robot Man? Okay, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like, I was very impressed that they did that. Well, that's what good writing does when you have limited resources, and sometimes it's even better than having the opportunity to actually portray these things.
Like Jaws.
Yes, exactly, like Jaws, the classic like Jaws situation, where it's sometimes nice for the shark not to work.
Yeah.
If the shark works, it sucks. And then if it doesn't work, it's
Which
good.
was also what was problematic among many other things about the Phantom Menace and Peter Jackson's King Kong was also problematic
100%.
for that same reason.
That movie did not need to be like 3.5 hours long.
Didn't you not have a 15-minute scene of them falling down a hill away from Velociraptors?
As you
That movie was
wish.
That was a Princess Bride reference.
Yeah, because they're falling down the hill for too long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But that one was funny.
Yeah, but I was making that
wasn't nearly as long either.
Yeah, you were making connections.
Yeah.
Wasn't nearly as long.
I mean, it was tenuous, but there's going to be a few people out there who will like it. They'll appreciate it.
Lord of the Rings was good though.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings is good. Heavenly Creatures is good. The Frighteners, I'm a big fan of. Heavenly Creatures, Brain Dead. Dead Alive, Brain Dead.
I still haven't seen that one. What was the one with the Muppets?
Meet the Feebles.
Meet the Feebles.
Oh, that's a great movie.
I haven't seen that one
It's
yet.
a fucked up movie.
I bought from Best Buy a 50, they had these different sets, like 50 horror movies, 50 mystery movies. And it was like $10, $15, and it had all these movies. But the thing was because none of them had they were all past their, like, what was that called that happened to Night of the Living Dead where they didn't get rights? George Romero didn't get rights.
Well, there's
they were all public domain. That's
Yeah.
what it was. They were all public domain, and one of them had Meet the Feebles on it, which I didn't know was because all the other movies are shit you'd never heard of ever. But then it had Meet the Feebles, it was one of those.
Meet the Feebles is the one that is that you're thinking of.
It was a gross Muppet movie, and that was famous that I'd been wanting to see.
People
and
should check it out.
And I didn't get to see it before I ended up
It's a
losing it.
fucked up weird movie.
But I thought it was weird that was on this like public domain set. I guess it was in public domain.
I don't know exactly the situation with the Meet the Feebles, but I do know that it was partly funded by the New Zealand government. New Zealand is very generous, or at least was at the time when Peter Jackson was coming up. He was able to get grants to make these movies with his fellow film student friends. And that's why we get to see some excellent creative stuff. I'm in favor of these types of grants because they let creative people do crazy, fun stuff.
Because we look a little too much like Tandarans.
Yeah.
That's what the government's for.
Although I think he used up all his grant and he still couldn't finish Meet the Feebles. I can't remember if it was Meet the Feebles that he had to go to the Japanese to get more money or if it was one of the other ones. I think it was Meet the Feebles where he had to get some Japanese investors to finish the movie.
Japanese
I don't like being strong.
Anyway, that's a story for another day.
Why?
A couple other things that I thought would be important to note were, don't you think it's a little weird that we don't see whether or not Sajin and Dakin...
Danik.
Sajin and Danik escape.
Sajin and Dakin.
We never see, they don't have a follow-up scene. They don't even have like a brief scene of them like waving, or they don't have a communication afterwards saying like, thank you, Captain Archer. Like the guy the two Suliban we've been following the whole time, one who is the father of the daughter who we do know got on the escape ships. Well, and then the other guy whose arc was that he had to kind of become brave.
They kind of summed it up at the end. They must have run out of time because it was at the end when Malcolm or someone or Mayweather was like, "Do you think they'll make it?" And then it was actually I can find.
Yeah, but that was the "Do you think you make it?" was about the people who left on the ships. I'm saying like, did these people even get on the ship? We don't know.
I think
the last we see
I think when Archer said, "Do I think they'll get out of Tandaran space safely?" Yes, I think that was implied that Danik and Sajin belong to that. And then
it's not.
But then he said, "Do I think they'll be all right?" And then that's sort of like part of the cliffhangers. Like, even if they get away, we don't know if they're going to survive.
But the subject in that sentence is not Danik and Sajin. The subject in that sentence is the Suliban escapees on the ships that escaped.
We can assume that. I think we can assume that they're part of that.
This week, the part of Dan will be played by Patrick because I do not think the information is there. Because the last thing we see is Sajin. Mayweather's about to go in to go Mayweather. Jesus Christ! Why do I know that? Mayweather and
Travis Mayweather
and Sajin and Danik is injured inside. Sajin tells Mayweather, he's like, I'm gonna go get him. Like the normal plot resolution to these two characters that we've watched this whole time are we find out what happened to them, and basically we would see them communicating on the view screen or something, saying like, "Thank you, Captain. We now have a fighting chance." And then they would have that conversation about like, "Do you think they'll make it?" And I was like, "Hey, it would take a miracle." Yeah.
Is that how they'd say
really
it?
make it, Betty Won't.
Bye-bye.
Boy.
But anyway, I don't know.
Oh boy.
I agree with you. Maybe it was a production thing. They just couldn't figure out how to squeeze it in there. There's no view screens on the shuttlecraft. I don't know. But it was, to me, it stood out that we were like, I was like, wait, what happened to those guys?
It would have been nice to see some kind of resolution.
Because everyone else is running the other way.
Yeah.
Right? And then we see Sajin run in to go, and we hadn't seen Danik in a little while at that point because he'd been injured in the escape attempt.
This is true.
I was also sad that we just never had a follow-up with this character of Grat in Enterprise because...
Hi, cutie. You look great in powder blue.
Because he was a compelling character. Now, who knows? Maybe
did we only see Grat that one time?
Yeah, I think it's the only time.
Clean Sock Drawer was only in one episode of Enterprise?
Yes, yeah. I even looked because in my mind I was like, oh yeah, does he show up? Because I think there's mentions of Tandorans in other times, but
knee pads, kinky.
Not Dean Stockwell, yeah. Anyway.
Is that a ginger quilled spent wing?
Helix deployments.
Any other closing bits? Any other thoughts?
I got 1 million hickeys. They have no rights.
All right.
Just leave you with this little not a limerick but a rhyme.
Be careful of their wicked smiles, their shining yellow eyes. At night they'll squeeze right through your door, and everybody dies.
Oh, boy.
It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Suliban, you wouldn't be surprised if I slithered up this wall or turned my face inside out.
I like that.
Inside out.
Turn my face inside out.
Go back and watch The Magnificent Ferengi and enjoy Christopher Shea as Kevin. He's great.
Would you rather spend the rest of your life in prison?
No, I would really rather not. I thought.
How much longer are they going to have to wait?
But where would I stay?
Where would I stay?
Thank you. Okay.
We're dangerous.
We're dangerous.
We are dangerous.
We're dangerous.
Ooh, this guy's dangerous.
Unfortunately.
We're dangerous.
Okay.
I
so
apologize.
We're dangerous.
that's it.
Never mind.
That's
We're
it for us
dangerous.
this week. We're not going to do any more of this podcasting this week, but we'll do more next week.
I can tell you're an enlightened man.
We're dangerous.
We'll run this episode through Dan's bespoke podcast.
Sometimes I wish I was genetically enhanced. We're dangerous.
Podcast topic selecting algorithm.
My skin is really starting to itch.
We're dangerous.
And to find out what we'll be discussing next week, you can go to our website, which
Suliban.
We're dangerous.
which is www.itsgotstartrek.com.
Oklahoma.
We're dangerous.
You can go to our social media. Anywhere we're on social media, which is the regular places, we are at It's Got Star Trek. Nothing, Dan?
They have no rights.
We're dangerous.
Dangerous.
Have you had a chance to reconsider?
We're dangerous.
We're also on YouTube, Facebook, etc.
Eat what you're given.
We're dangerous.
If you would like to send us a comment or question or whatever else suits your fancy, you can send it along to us at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com. Feedback.
Son of a bitch.
At itsgotstartrek.com. And you can also, if you'd like, to leave us a voicemail a la Isaac from Unplanned Trek, you can either just send us an MP3 or go to www.itsgotstartrek.com/record, and there's a handy dandy little tool there that will let you record up to 90 seconds of audio, which will then be forwarded to us to then play on the air.
I can't permit that.
All right. So keep an eye out on the website, social media, etc., to find out what we'll be discussing next week. Until then, we hope you have
It's a trick.
a wonderful time. We'll talk.
Sam,
We'll talk
you gotta get out of here.
Gotta get out of here.
Bunch of jam eaters.
I understand you're looking for a way out of here.
Who are you?
Don't you recognize me, Travis?
Malcolm?
In the flesh. You look worse than I do.